Harold Carmichael was born on September 22, 1949, in Jacksonville, Florida. And he had quite the NFL career. For episode 1 of Football Marvels, Harold Carmichael. Carmichael spent his college days at Southern University. And in the 1971 draft, he was taken 161st overall by the Philadelphia Eagles. But the most insane thing about this dude was his height. Carmichael stood a staggering 6 feet 8 inches tall. And here's a fun fact for you. He is the tallest wide receiver in NFL history. And there's never really been a player like him. So why haven't there been 6'8" wide receivers? Well, I think there's a couple reasons. One, if they're that tall, they're probably going to play basketball. Or if they decide to play football, it's likely that they're on the bigger side, so they'll probably play tight end or a lineman. It seems like a super tall, super lean body in the NFL is rare, because Carmichael was only 225 pounds and was 6'8". But anyways, let's get back to his NFL career. For 1971 and 1972, he was a tight end, but then in his third year, they switched him to wideout, and everything changed. In his third year, Carmichael put up over 1,100 yards on 67 receptions. This might not seem crazy now, but for the time he was playing in, those were pretty insane numbers. The NFL was not a pass-happy league back then like it is today. So for the time, those numbers were just incredible. And it proved to be a good decision for Philadelphia to move him from tight end to wide receiver, because he flourished. One of the most common plays in the NFL today is the quick screen, and it seemed like Harold Carmichael was one of the first people to really do this. This might surprise you, and it did surprise me as well when I learned this, because I feel like today, when NFL teams run quick screens, it's usually the shorter guys. And yet, Harold Carmichael, the tallest receiver in NFL history, seemed to be the one who really got this trend going. After that superb 1973 season, he put up 4 good, but not nearly as good seasons after that. In those 4 seasons, he never had less than 503 receiving yards, but never more than 665. But again, you have to remember the era of football Harold Carmichael played in. As I said earlier, the game did not have the same amount of rules that helped offensive players, nor was it as much of a pass-happy league. Anyways though, over the next 3 seasons, from 1978 to 1980, Carmichael put up 3 consecutive Pro Bowls in a row. This was highlighted in 1978, when he put together another fantastic season with 1,000 receiving yards. And up to that point in his career, Carmichael set a new then NFL record with 127 games in a row with a reception. Those games stretched from 1972 to 1980. Just wild. Now, the interesting thing I found was that in 1981, he put up another 1,000-yard season, but didn't make the Pro Bowl. I thought that was a little curious, but anyways. He finished his NFL career with 2 more good years with the Eagles and 1 year with the Cowboys. Seriously, what a career this guy had. Some may think that his stats look pedestrian to today's standards, but he played in the 70s and 80s, so it was a lot more impressive at the time. Also, in 7 different seasons, he led the Eagles in receiving yards and receptions. And at the time of his retirement, he held many Eagles franchise records. Things like games played, consecutive games played, touchdowns, receptions, receiving yards, and receiving touchdowns. Wow. And keep in mind, the entire time, Carmichael stood at 6'8". Along with all those records, he also had some other ones, including winning the NFL Man of the Year in 1980, and he made the 1970s All-Decade team, which, in my opinion, really just speaks for itself. His accomplishments were just amazing throughout the course of his career. Oh, and yeah, kind of important. I guess I should mention, last year he was inducted into the Hall of Fame, which is very well deserved and probably well overdue. And when you look at tall wide receivers in the Hall of Fame, there aren't many. In fact, there are only 3 that stand over 6'3". Those being Randy Moss, who stands 6'4", Calvin Johnson, 6'5", and Harold Carmichael, who stands 6'8". I mean, think about it. When you think of tall wide receivers in NFL history, the first one that comes to mind, at least for me, is Megatron. But Calvin Johnson was 3 inches shorter than Harold Carmichael. And that just shows how insane this dude really was. I don't know if we'll ever see a player like this again, mixing height, and yet he wasn't super strong. He's the only very good player of this body type in NFL history, which I found very interesting. Even Megatron was shorter than Harold Carmichael by a significant margin, but Johnson went on to have a fantastic career himself.
Second down and 8 from the 36. Stafford with time. One-on-one for Calvin Johnson. Lays up.